The splash in the midnight sea. The sea was quiet that night. Dark waves rolled slowly under a sky full of stars. A small cargo ship moved through the water, its engines low and steady. On the back of the ship, away from the lights, 3 men stood near a metal cage. Inside the cage was a girl, young, thin, and not from this world. She had pale lavender skin, silver hair, and glowing blue eyes that no longer cried. Her body was weak. Her wrists and ankles were tied with rough metal bands. She had not eaten. In days, her mouth was dry. She could not even speak now. "She's useless," one of the men said, kicking the cage lightly. Baron said to toss any broken ones. "She's still breathing," said the second. "Barely," said the third, laughing coldly. "No one's buying her. Let the sea take her." With no warning, they pushed the cage toward the edge of the ship. The girl didn't even scream. Her eyes just widened as the metal cage rolled off the deck and splashed into the freezing sea. She sank quickly. The salt water stung her skin. Her breath caught. She couldn't scream, couldn't swim, couldn't move. The cage dragged her down deeper into the cold blackness. Her vision blurred. Her heartbeat slowed. Everything started to fade. But miles away, another man was on the sea. He was human, middle-aged, quiet, a fisherman named Elias. He was returning home late from a long day of work. His boat was small, with just enough space for nets and gear. Suddenly something strange happened. His boat rocked, not from wind, not from a wave. Then he heard something, a strange metallic sound, a splash. And was that a scream? He stood up fast, grabbed his flashlight, pointed it toward the dark water. At first he saw nothing, then movement, bubbles, something sinking. He started the boat's engine and moved closer. The light found it, a metal cage under the surface, barely visible. "Someone's inside," Elias shouted to no one. Without thinking, he dropped his tools and dived into the cold water. The ocean swallowed him quickly. The water was dark, cold, and heavy. But he swam hard, kicking down toward the sinking cage. As he got closer, he saw her, curled up inside, not moving. With shaking hands, Elias grabbed the edge of the cage. It was heavy, too heavy to pull up. He swam to the surface, gasping for breath, then dived again. He found the lock, old and rusted. He had no key. He swam back up. Climbing into his boat, dripping wet and freezing, he grabbed a small metal cutter from his toolbox. He tied a rope to the cage and began to pull it closer, with all his strength. The cage rose slowly, inch by inch. He cut the ropes, twisted the lock, and finally, with a snap, the cage door fell open. The girl didn't move. Come on," Elias whispered. He dragged her out of the water and onto the deck. She wasn't breathing. No, don't do this." He tilted her head, cleared her mouth, and began to press on her chest. He had done rescue training once long ago. Never thought he'd use it like this. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. Suddenly she coughed. Salt water spilled from her mouth. Her chest rose. She was alive. Elias let out a deep sigh of relief. He gently lifted her and wrapped her in a blanket. She was still cold, still silent, but her eyes opened just a little. She looked up at him. For a moment she looked afraid. "I'm not here to hurt you," Elias said softly. "You're safe now." She blinked. Then her eyes closed again. Elias carried her inside the cabin of his boat, laid her down gently, and lit a small heater. He made warm tea and placed a soft pillow under her head. She was so light, so fragile. Outside, the sea rolled on. Behind them, the cargo ship had already disappeared into the night, as if it had never been there. But Elias knew what he saw, and he knew what he saved. A girl thrown away like garbage, now lying quietly on his boat, breathing because he chose not to ignore the splash in the midnight sea. The alien girl woke up to the soft sound of rain tapping on the boat's roof. Her body ached, her throat burned, and her skin felt cold even under the warm blanket. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Her mind was foggy. Her eyes blinked slowly, adjusting to the dim yellow glow of a small lamp nearby. The walls around her were made of wood, not metal. She wasn't in a cage, she wasn't underwater, she was somewhere else. Then she saw him, the human. He sat at the far corner of the small cabin, his clothes still damp, hands wrapped around a steaming mug. His face looked kind, though tired. His eyes met hers. He didn't speak right away. Neither did she. Her first instinct was fear. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself and tried to move back, but her body betrayed her. Weak limbs, sore, muscles, and a head that spun with every motion. Her eyes widened in panic. She expected to be yelled at, grabbed, dragged, but the man didn't move. "It's okay," Elias said gently. His voice was calm, low. "You're safe here. You're not a prisoner." She stared at him, confused. Her thin fingers gripped the edge of the blanket as if it could shield her. She opened her mouth, trying to speak, but no words came out. Only a dry gasp. She coughed softly, then flinched as the sound echoed in the small space. He stood up slowly, careful not to scare her, and poured warm water into a cup. "Here," he said, placing it on the table near her. "Drink this. Just small sips." She didn't reach for it. Elias sighed and sat back down. "You've been through hell. I can see that. But you're not going back. Not while you're on my boat." She watched him quietly. There was something strange about this human. He didn't look rich. He didn't look dangerous. And he hadn't asked her name, or where she came from, or how much she cost. That's what everyone else used to ask. How much is she worth? Is she broken? What's her function? But he asked nothing. For the first time in days, or maybe weeks, no one was shouting at her. She leaned forward very slowly and picked up the cup with shaking hands. She sipped. The warm water slid down her throat and brought a strange comfort. She stared at the cup like it was the first real kindness she had ever touched. Elias watched her quietly. "My name's Elias," he said after a while. "I fish, I live alone. I wasn't supposed to be out there last night, but maybe I was." She looked at him. She didn't respond, but her gaze lingered longer this time. "I saw them throw you into the sea," he continued. "Those bastards called you cargo, like you were nothing." Her hands tightened around the cup. "I pulled you out. Thought you were gone at first." He gave a small smile. "You've got a strong will. Most would have never made it." She looked away. He stood up and opened a cabinet, pulling out a small bowl of soft mashed food. "Can you eat?" "Just a little. I don't know what your kind likes, but it's warm." When he placed it beside her, she stared at it, unsure if it was real or some trick. Then slowly, she dipped a finger into it. Warm, soft. She licked the tip of her finger. Her body reacted first. Her stomach growled. She began to eat, bit by bit, careful, quiet. But this time, no one yanked the bowl away from her. No one slapped her hand for being slow. After she finished, Elias gave her a small nod. "You rest now. I'll be right here." She leaned back on the pillow. Her mind was still spinning. Who was this man? Why was he helping her? What did he want? But no answers came. Only silence and the soft rocking of the boat. As she drifted back into sleep, memories returned in flashes. The cage, the chains, the auction house full of shouting voices and cruel stares. She remembered the last face she saw before the sea swallowed her. A laughing alien trader with gold teeth who shouted, "Throw her overboard, no one pays for broken things." But someone had pulled her out. Someone had looked past the cage. In the middle of the night, she opened her eyes again. Elias was still there, asleep in the corner chair, arms crossed, his face calm. She stared at him. Then in a whisper so soft that it barely existed, she spoke her first word since she had fallen, into the ocean. Why? But Elias didn't hear her. and yet somehow deep in her heart she felt like he already knew. The next morning, sunlight touched the edges of the small cabin, warm and golden. The alien girl sat on the cot, wrapped in a blanket, staring out the round window. Her silver hair caught the light like threads of glass. Her hands were still, trembling, but her eyes, once filled with fear, now showed a small spark of awareness. She was alive. She was breathing, and someone had saved her. Elias stood outside on the deck, fixing a torn fishing net. He kept glancing back through the window to check on her. She hadn't said anything since that one soft word in the night. Why? He didn't ask for more. He knew enough. Her silence told stories of pain, of hunger, of being treated like garbage. But Elias wasn't done. He needed to know who had done this to her. What kind of monsters lock a girl in a cage and throw her into the sea? Back inside, the girl jumped slightly as he entered, though her reaction was slower than before. She didn't try to run anymore. She just pulled the blanket tighter around her. "I'm heading to the harbor," Elias said. "We'll dock in a few hours. You can stay hidden in the back cabin. No one will see you." She said nothing but gave a slow nod. Her eyes followed him closely now, not with fear, but with cautious interest. As the boat neared the harbor, Elias scanned the docks. People were unloading cargo, shouting orders, carrying crates. But one ship caught his attention. It was larger, newer, with a dark red stripe across its side. And it looked familiar. His eyes narrowed. It was the same ship he'd seen near the deep waters last night, the one that left just before he heard the splash. The ship's name was half hidden behind tarps and rust, but Elias remembered the sharp nose and long tail engine. This was it, the one that had dumped her like trash. Walked up to a dock worker. "That ship, what's it doing here?" The man shrugged. "It's part of Baron Track's cargo fleet, been running silent deliveries between systems. No logs, no questions asked." Elias frowned. "Who's Baron Track? You new here?" The man laughed. "Track's one of the biggest traders on this side of the galaxy. Deals in everything, machinery, fuel, part, and sometimes people." Elias's jaw clenched. "You mean slaves?" The man's voice lowered. "Call it what you want. No one stops him. He pays the port taxes. People look away." Elias turned and walked away, fists tight. Back at the boat, he found the girl still sitting quietly, her eyes now looking stronger, more alert. He knelt down, speaking slowly. "I saw the ship, the one that threw you away. I know who owns it. Baron Track." Her eyes widened slightly at the name. Her lips pressed together. Pain flashed across her face. And then she nodded. "You know him," Elias said. She nodded again, slower this time. "I want to help you," Elias said gently. "But I need to understand, why did they take you? Why did they throw you away?" She closed her eyes for a long moment. Then she pointed to her throat and shook her head. "You can't speak?" Elias asked. She hesitated, then nodded. But then, reaching for a small, dirty piece of cloth on the table, she began to write with her finger. Just letters traced in the dust. Elias leaned closer and read it slowly. "Was servant. Tried to escape. They broke me." His heart sank. "They said I was broken." She continued tracing. "So they tossed me away." Elias sat down beside her, silent for a moment. He looked at her, this fragile girl who had been sold, caged, and discarded, and yet she still breathed, still looked at him with eyes that held questions, not hate. "You're not broken," he said softly. "You're still here." She gave a small shake of her head, as if to argue. But then she stopped. Her hand brushed against his arm gently, and she looked at him with something new in her eyes. Confusion, yes, but also a faint shimmer of hope. "I'm going to the authorities," Elias said. "They should know what that ship is doing." But she suddenly grabbed his wrist, panic rising in her eyes. "They won't help?" he guessed. She shook her head hard and traced again. "He owns them too." Elias's heart pounded. The corruption went deeper than he thought. Baron Track didn't just run illegal cargo, he owned protection, maybe even the local law. He leaned back in his chair, thinking hard. He couldn't just drop her off somewhere. She had nowhere safe to go. And if he reported the Baron, she might be hunted all over again. "You'll stay with me," he finally said, "until we find a real place for you." Her eyes widened. She pointed at herself, then him, confused. "Yes, you," Elias said. "And no, not as a servant, not as cargo, just a person, someone who needs a second chance." She stared at him for a long time, then slowly she nodded. For the first time, Elias saw something soft on her face. Not a smile, but almost. Elias guided the small boat away from the harbor, eyes scanning the open sea as the dock grew smaller behind them. He didn't speak. The alien girl sat beside him, still wrapped in her blanket, her silver hair brushing against her thin shoulders as the wind blew softly. Her glowing blue eyes stayed on the waves, but her fingers gripped the bench tightly. She hadn't looked back once, not at the harbor, not at the ship, not at the world that had thrown her away. They sailed toward a quiet island Elias used for rest and repairs, hidden from the busy ports, unknown to most travelers. It wasn't much, a few trees, a small hut, a fresh water stream. But it was safe, quiet, peaceful. And that was exactly what she needed. Once they docked, Elias helped her step off the boat carefully. Her legs were still weak, but she was walking again, slowly, cautiously, like someone who didn't believe the ground would hold her. Inside the hut, he gave her clean clothes, simple and soft, and turned away as she changed. She sat on the edge of a bed afterward, eyes moving around the room. There were no cages, no chains, no locks. Elias placed a tray in front of her with a bowl of warm soup, a glass of water, and a piece of fruit. "Eat as much as you want," he said gently. She nodded. He stepped outside to give her space, standing beneath the shade of a tree. His mind spun with questions. What kind of galaxy had they become, where a living being could be sold, broken, and tossed into the sea like trash? How many others were out there? And what could one man do? The door creaked behind him. She stepped out slowly, holding the glass of water in her hands. She didn't look scared. Not anymore. Just unsure. Elias smiled gently. "You feeling better?" She gave a small nod. Then, surprising him, she stepped forward and touched his arm. Her voice came out soft, cracked, like it hadn't been used in weeks. "My name," Elias blinked. "Your name?" She nodded slowly. I can speak," she whispered. "I just forgot how. I was afraid to use it." He knelt beside her, not wanting to rush. She took a breath. "My name is Vera." It was just 2 words, but to Elias, it sounded like a miracle. He smiled. "Vera, that's a beautiful name." She looked down, unsure how to respond. Her lips trembled, but not with fear, with something else, a feeling she hadn't tasted in a long time. Hope. He stood and nodded toward the small table outside. "Want to sit with me? You don't have to talk more, but it's peaceful out here." She hesitated, then followed. They sat under the tree. The breeze was cool. Birds chirped softly in the distance. Elias didn't ask more questions. He simply sat with her. Quiet was no longer painful between them. It was comfortable now. After a while, she spoke again, barely above a whisper. "They said I was born in the wrong body, too weak, not strong enough, not smart enough. I couldn't fight. I couldn't clean fast enough. They told me I was useless." Elias turned to her gently. "That's not true." She shook her head slowly. "I believed them." There was silence for a moment. Then she looked at him, her glowing eyes holding back tears. "But you pulled me out of the sea. Why?" Elias sighed and leaned back. Because someone had to. But you don't know me. I didn't have to. Then why? He thought for a moment. Because I've lost people before. People no one helped. I swore if I ever saw someone drowning, really drowning, I'd never let them sink. She stared at him for a long time. Her lip trembled again, but she covered it with her hand. I thought I was going to die in that cage. I know, he said softly. I didn't care. I was already gone inside. Not anymore. Vera looked up at the sky. For the first time in her memory, the sun felt warm and welcome. Not something she feared, not something to hide from. Her heart still hurt, but it also beat stronger now. You saved me, she whispered. You saved yourself too, Elias replied. I just gave you a hand. She smiled, just a little, and wiped her cheek. A single tear had fallen. But this time it wasn't one of pain. It was something new, something like healing. The wind carried the scent of salt and trees. The world was quiet. But something important had changed. For the first time, Vera had spoken. For the first time, she had been heard. The quiet island offered peace, but only for a while. Vera had started walking barefoot along the shoreline each morning, her skin warming under the rising sun, her silver hair catching the light like silk. She had begun to eat more, sleep longer, and sometimes, when Elias wasn't looking, even hum softly to herself. Her voice was weak but sweet, like a song long forgotten. She still spoke little, but her eyes no longer held fear. They held life. Elias, too, had changed. He fixed the boat slower these days, not in a rush to leave. He didn't say it aloud, but the island felt different now, with her presence. Fuller, softer. He would often glance toward the trees, where she sat sketching patterns in the sand, with a stick, and wonder how something so broken could start to heal so quickly, if only someone gave her the chance. But peace doesn't last when evil has money. The red-striped cargo ship didn't forget what it lost that night at sea. Vera was not just any girl, she was property, according to Baron Track. And when property goes missing, hunters follow. They came at dusk. A sleek black transport ship appeared on the horizon, silent as a shadow, lowering just above the beach with no sound of warning. Vera, sitting near the waterline, froze when she saw it. Her breath stopped. Elias was inside the hut preparing a small fire when he heard the low thrum of energy above the trees. He rushed outside and saw the ship descending. His heart dropped. No. Before he could shout, the side door of the black ship hissed open, and 3 armored figures stepped out. Their faces were hidden behind silver helmets. One of them pointed directly at Vera. There. The voice crackled through a speaker. She's alive. Bring her in. Vera tried to run, but her legs failed her. Her body remembered the cage, the pain, the drowning. She collapsed to her knees, frozen by panic. The hunters moved fast. Elias didn't think. He just ran. He sprinted down the slope, grabbing a long fishing spear on his way. The first hunter raised a stun rod, ready to strike Vera, but Elias reached him just in time and slammed the spear across the helmet. The impact made the man stumble, but the others turned quickly. Get the human. He's interfering. Vera's eyes widened as Elias stepped in front of her, arms wide. She's not yours, he shouted. She was paid for, one hunter growled. She belongs to the Baron. She's not cargo, Elias yelled. She's a person. A flash of red light zipped past his head. Stun pulse. Elias ducked and grabbed Vera's hand. Run! But she didn't move. I can't, she whispered, shaking. You can, he said, gripping her hand tighter. Look at me, Vera. You're not a prisoner anymore. Her legs trembled. They'll take me again, she whispered. They'll put me back in a cage. I can't go back. Then don't, Elias said, locking eyes with her. We'll fight. Together. Something changed in her face. Fear was still there, but something else too. Trust, strength, a flicker of the fire they tried to kill. She stood. The hunters advanced. Elias raised his spear again, but this time Vera stepped forward with him. Her hand glowed faintly, a blue shimmer crawling up her wrist. She didn't know what it was, only that it was hers. "Warning shot," one of the hunters said, aiming again. But before he could fire, Vera raised her hand, and the blue light burst from her palm like a sudden wind. It wasn't strong, but it knocked the hunter back a few feet, surprising them all. "What the? She still has energy signatures." "She's not broken," another shouted. "No," Elias said through clenched teeth. "She was never broken. You just never gave her space to breathe." The hunters regrouped, now more cautious. But the delay gave Elias enough time to grab Vera and run toward the woods. They ducked under branches, ran across roots, and pushed through thick leaves as stun bolts sizzled behind them. "Keep going," Elias urged. "I remember this place," Vera gasped between breaths. "There's a cave near the stream." They turned left, sliding down a slope. Behind them, the hunters moved slower, weighed down by armor and heavy boots. But they were gaining ground. The cave appeared between two mossy rocks. Elias and Vera rushed inside, panting, hiding behind a wall of stone. The footsteps outside stopped. "They're inside," a hunter said. Elias raised his spear again, though his arms were shaking now. But Vera touched his hand. "Let me try," she whispered. She stood up, eyes closed, focusing on the memory of that burst of blue light. She reached deep inside herself, past the fear, past the pain, and something answered. The glow returned, brighter now, warmer. She stepped out from behind the rock and raised both hands. A wave of blue energy expanded in every direction, gentle but strong. It didn't burn. It didn't destroy. But it knocked the hunters off their feet and pushed them out of the cave like a windstorm. They groaned, stunned. Vera collapsed into Elias's arms. "Let's go," he said. Together they ran deeper into the woods, hearts pounding. Behind them the hunters didn't rise again. Not tonight. Not against them. They didn't stop running until the trees swallowed them whole. Vera's legs trembled, her breath ragged, but she didn't let go of Elias's hand. He could hear her heartbeat racing almost as fast as his own. The forest was thicker here, green shadows and twisted roots covering the ground, damp leaves brushing their shoulders. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows through the trees, and silence returned at last. But it wasn't peaceful. It was the silence that comes before something worse. Elias leaned against a tree, trying to catch his breath. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Vera nodded, though her knees nearly gave out beneath her. "Yes," she whispered. "But they'll come back. I hurt them. They'll bring more." Elias knew she was right. The blast she had released, glowing blue and full of raw power, had saved them. But it also told the Baron exactly where she was. "They'll be tracking us," Elias said. "We need a plan. We can't keep running." Vera looked up at him, scared but steady. "You should leave me," she said. "They want me, not you. You've done enough." "No," he said firmly. "We got this far together. I'm not letting you face this alone." She stared at him for a moment, then looked away. "You'll get hurt." "I already have," Elias said, pulling back his shirt collar. She gasped when she saw the red bruise across his shoulder, where one of the stun blasts had grazed him earlier. "Why didn't you say something?" she asked, stepping closer. "Because I don't regret it." She hesitated, then reached out, placing her fingers gently over the wound. Her hand glowed faintly. Warmth spread from her skin to his. The pain eased. He blinked, stunned, as the sharp burn faded into nothing. "I can heal. Sometimes," she whispered. "It's not strong yet. It comes and goes." "That's incredible," he said. "It's why they wanted me," she replied. "My kind, our energy was once sacred. They learned to cage it, to sell it." Elias lowered his voice. "Do you know how to control it?" Vera shook her head slowly. "Only when I'm scared. Or when I care." They fell into a quiet pause. She wrapped her arms around herself. The night wind was cold now, even beneath the trees. She didn't ask to stop and rest, but Elias could see she needed it. He guided her to a hollow beneath an old tree, its roots forming a low shelter. "We'll stay here tonight," he said. "I'll keep watch." "But you're hurt," she said. "I'm fine now, thanks to you." He sat beside her, setting his spear down gently. She curled into the blanket he had carried in his pack. She didn't fall asleep, but she relaxed, enough to speak. "They taught us not to dream," she said suddenly. "In the cages, we weren't allowed to speak to each other. If we did, they'd punish us. They said dreaming made us harder to sell." Elias clenched his fists. "That's cruel." "It worked," she said. "After a while, I stopped thinking about the future. I just waited. Waited for someone to open the cage, for someone to end it. And then you fell into the sea," he said quietly. She nodded. "And I thought that was the end. But then I saw light, and your hands." "You still have a future, Vera," Elias said. "But we need to fight for it." Vera's eyes burned in the dark. "I don't know how to fight." "You already did," he said. "You stood up to them. You protected both of us. I didn't control it. I don't understand it. What if it turns on me? Then I'll stand beside you," Elias said, "and we'll figure it out together." A sound cracked in the distance. They froze. Elias grabbed the spear. Vera pressed against the tree. The sound came again, metal footsteps on leaves. "They're close," she whispered. "3 of them. Same armor." Elias glanced toward the dark. "Then we don't run anymore." Vera blinked. "What do you mean?" "We draw them in. The forest is thick. You know your power better now, and I know the land. They're hunters, but so are we." For a moment, Vera said nothing. Then she stood. "I'll do it," she said. "But not because I want revenge, because I want to be free." Elias smiled. "That's the right reason." She raised her hands slowly. Blue light flickered at her fingertips. "It's coming easier now. It's not pain, it's purpose." He nodded. "We strike when they enter the clearing. I'll draw them in. You hold your power until they're close." Vera looked at him nervously. "And if I fail?" "You won't." She took a breath and stepped forward. The choice had been made. No more running. No more hiding. She would fight. Not as a weapon, not as a servant, but as herself. The moon hung low over the forest, silver and watchful, casting light through the twisted branches as Elias crouched behind a fallen tree. His grip on the spear was tight, eyes locked on the clearing ahead. Beside him, hidden in the shadows, Vera stood barefoot in the soft dirt. Her silver hair fluttered in the wind and her palms glowed faint blue. The energy within her no longer flared in panic. Now it pulsed steady, calm, waiting, aware. She wasn't trembling anymore. She was ready. The footsteps grew louder, metal boots crunching dry leaves. Then came the low buzz of scanners, sweeping the trees in search of heat and sound. The hunters moved as one, their armor lit by faint red strips, weapons drawn and voices cold through their helmets. "Target locked," one of them said. "Life form detected near the root cluster." They were close. Too close. Elias rose slowly, just enough to be seen. "Looking for someone?" he said, voice firm, fearless. "There you are," the lead hunter barked. "Where's the girl?" "Gone," Elias lied, stepping into the clearing. "You missed your chance." "You're lying," the second hunter said. "We tracked her energy signature." "She's not yours anymore," Elias said. "And if you want her, you'll have to go through me." They didn't even hesitate. The lead hunter raised his weapon and fired, but Elias was already moving. He dove behind a tree, drawing their attention as plasma bursts sizzled against bark and soil. He counted on it, on their arrogance, because they still thought they were hunting a runaway slave. They didn't see Vera, not until she stepped out of the shadows behind them. She raised both hands. The blue light burst from her fingertips in a wide arc, silent and powerful. It wasn't fire, It wasn't wind. It was something purer, like force turned into feeling, like memory turned into strength. The first hunter flew backward, hitting a tree and crashing to the ground with a spark. The second turned to fire, but she raised her hand again, and the weapon froze, locked in the air by her energy. "No," she said clearly, her voice stronger than it had ever been. "No more cages." The gun shattered in the hunter's hand. The third ran toward her with a blade, roaring behind his helmet. Vera stepped back, scared, but not broken. Elias appeared, from the side, striking with his spear, knocking the hunter off balance. Vera followed with a second pulse, sending the attacker tumbling. The forest went still. The three hunters lay scattered, stunned, groaning. Elias turned to Vera. She stood tall now, glowing faintly, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Her face was pale, but her eyes shone bright with something the cages had almost killed. Pride. "You okay?" Elias asked, lowering the spear. She nodded. "I didn't run." "No," he said with a smile. "You rose." Vera looked down at her hands, the glow fading slowly. "It listens to me now. My power. Because you're not afraid of it anymore." "I used to think it was a curse," she said quietly. "They told me I was too weak to carry it." Elias shook his head. "They were wrong." She stepped forward, looking at the fallen hunters. "What happens now?" "We send a message," Elias said. "Baron Track doesn't get to hide anymore. Not after this. Not after what he did to you. And who knows how many others." Vera looked at him. "You think they'll believe us?" "They'll believe you," he said. "They'll see you. You're not just another lost girl anymore. You're living proof of what they tried to bury." She touched his arm gently. "I was going to die in that cage, Elias. I had already accepted it." "I know. You changed that. You didn't even know my name." "I didn't need to." She smiled. "Now I want the galaxy to know it. Not just my name, but my story." Elias nodded. "Then we tell it together." By dawn, they had used the hunter's own equipment to send out a message to nearby systems, a transmission carrying the proof of what the Baron had done. Images, coordinates, voice logs, and Vera's voice, soft but strong, speaking her name and her truth. "I was locked in a cage. I was thrown into the sea like trash. But I survived. And I am not broken." Within hours, answers started to arrive. First a rebel network, then a news ship, then even a small group of escaped slaves who had been searching for someone just like her. Someone who survived. Someone who stood up. Later that day, as the sun climbed high and the forest shone gold, Elias and Vera stood side by side near the boat. She looked different now. Not just cleaner, not just fed. Different inside. She had come back from the sea. She had risen from chains. And now, she was free.